Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's International Affairs webinar on technology and de-extremisation in Xinjiang. My name is Ben Horton, and I'm a communications manager here at Chatham House. Much has been written about the plight of the Uyghur minority in China's Xinjiang province, but less attention has been placed on these systems and processes that have enabled the government's actions. In today's webinar, we'll be exploring the surveillance technologies and security strategies which bolster the PRC's de-extremisation policy and consider whether these methods could provide a model for authoritarian regimes beyond China.
Chinese state's broader social engineering project in Xinjiang has been facilitated by two key developments. First, China has adopted global de-radicalization and counterterrorism strategies in the context of its own fight in Xinjiang against what it refers to as the three forces, namely extremism, separatism, and terrorism. This is reflected in the legalization and institutionalization of the vocational skills education and training centers as a means of de-extremizing Uyghurs. Second, and crucially, the growing interest and popularity by Chinese elites to use technological surveillance to monitor, shape, and control individuals in Chinese society has been complemented by a willingness of the Chinese security bureaucracy to experiment with new technological tools to govern and control its territory and population, including its ethnic minorities. To be sure, the use of technological surveillance tools to govern has much earlier precedents. Intelligence-led policing reforms have been introduced by the CCP in the broader Chinese context from as early as the 2000s in projects such as the Golden Shield, and in more recent years in the form of the social credit system. But what is notable in the case of Xinjiang is the fact that new technologies used in combination with physical monitoring have been used as we discussed in our article, have been used in the context of the CCP's counterterrorism and de-extremization work. This integration of covert and overt monitoring has occurred by means of digitized surveillance tools such as GPS tracking, voice and facial recognition technologies, machine learning algorithms, and other software and hardware, as well as the continued reliance on other traditional face-to-face surveillance practices. The reliance on data-driven predictive policing network technologies include the integrated joint operations platform, which allows the state to preempt signs of extremist, separatist, or terrorist behavior among the targeted population. As a means of social sorting, such surveillance technologies enables the state to group Uyghurs into different categories according to their proclivities for risk. For instance, according to one report, Uyghurs are grouped according to 4 categories: focus for investigation, untrustworthy, ordinary, and trustworthy. This technological governance and control of society is, as Darren Byler, the anthropologist Darren Byler, who studied Xinjiang as well, has noted, is sustained by a political economy comprising multiple stakeholders, state security, higher education, and private industry collaborators. Moreover, through the introduction of convenience police stations, the Chinese state has been able to embed police officers more deeply at the grassroots level in Xinjiang. The CCP also employs various forms of mass surveillance and informal surveillance and mediation processes at the grassroots to increase its social visibility and penetration and to preempt stability. One such example is the 10 Households Joint Defense, a grassroots unit where households are basically organized and mobilized into a defense unit. Public security agencies, state-owned enterprises, and grassroots agencies also participate in this securitization and surveillance in Xinjiang. On the one hand, such a system functions with the explicit purpose of ensuring public security and maintaining stability in the region. But on the other hand, it is also designed to politically mobilize party cadres to wage a war against the perceived enemies of the state, serving towards party building and reinforcing the CCP's role as an arbiter of stability.
Thank you very much. So I've got a question here. I'd love to hear a bit more of your thoughts. actually it seems to be coming in from a number of different people in different ways around the extent to which these technologies and these surveillance systems are likely to be sort of exported abroad, adopted by other countries, applied to different areas. We've got a question that's come in there saying that, do you think that this is something we might see in Hong Kong, but beyond China as well? Do you think that increasingly these methods will be sort of whether China will be a kind of adopted as a model by other regimes, by other authoritarian states, or even non-authoritarian states?
Yeah, look, I think this is a really, really important question, and I think there's kind of two sides to this story. I think one is the technological side. So yes, that's kind of a path of least resistance in some ways, is that you have the ability of a number of Chinese tech startups and so forth that are involved in Xinjiang SenseTime and iFlyTech and a number of others that make particular components. They will and are exporting those technologies to a whole range of different states. I think the bigger question is really the second element, which is, I suppose, the underlying methodology that we hopefully have in part have tried to explain, is how you actually make or marry up the technology with, I suppose, that wider point about surveillance, that it's not just about ensuring control, but it's also about ensuring you can shape behaviour in certain ways. I think that's kind of the really interesting part, and I think that story is perhaps yet to fully emerge. But having said that, I think there is clear avenues for that to be transferred. So, for instance, China has a range of cooperative relationships with the Central Asian states, for instance, through the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation. And also, I think just yesterday I noted there was some reporting about a range of Chinese counter-terrorism experts and so forth that will be travelling to engage with Pakistani partners, for instance, in the wake of a number of the attacks in Pakistan that have appeared to target Chinese nationals. So there are a number of ways in which, you know, that kind of element can potentially be transferred.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Stephanie, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would just second Michael's point about the normative role of technologies, that they're not inherently good or bad in any case, but it's the kind of the means by which you use technologies whereby they become a concern. And having said that, and I think we touch on this to some extent, which is the kind of the blurring of lines between the blurring of the line between illiberal and liberal practices of governing. I think by paying more attention to some of these governing practices, it enables us to kind of discern the existence of these complex borrowings and twinnings of governing practices, and then that's not something that we can cleanly associate authoritarian regimes or liberal regimes behave in this particular way, and therefore this means that liberal technologies in the hands of liberal regimes are necessarily safer than technologies in the hands of authoritarian regimes. So I think that's something that we need to also pay attention to in light of this broader discussion as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.